So the Saints avoided a dubious distinction. ESPN put together, as we embark on a new decade in the NFL, obviously, they looked back at the past decade, and they put together these metrics, basically looking at how each team fared, how these trends went over the past decade. And they looked at what they, the metric that they use is the DVOA, the defensive value measurement. I'm not going to go into all of the minute details of all the particulars that factor into the measurement, but you can imagine essentially all the different metrics that you weigh in to factor if a team's defensive value. Well, the Saints just barely avoided the distinction of being the worst defensive team of the past decade. That went to the Raiders, thank goodness. But when you look at their rank in this DVOA metric, in 2010, they were 10th. They were a playoff team. Now, in 2011, oddly enough, because that was such a great Saints team, they were second in the NFL in their offensive DVOA, their defensive value. They were 28th defensively in 2011. And I guess I can start to think back to the awful flashbacks of that divisional round game against San Francisco and go, yeah, the team was 13-3, but the defense wasn't great. A year later, of course, was the Bounty Gate year when Sean Payton was gone and Steve Spagnuolo spent his lone season as defensive coordinator, and the Saints were dead last in the NFL in defense. A year later, the Saints, 2013, were back in the playoffs. They beat Philly, if you recall, then lost to Seattle, and then it started. The back-to-back-to-back 7-9 seasons, and the Saints' defensive ranks those 3 years, 31st, 32nd, 31st. So in a 5-year span, 4 of the 5 seasons, the Saints were worst or second to worst in the NFL. Basically, for half of the decade, for half of this past decade, the Saints defensively were either the worst or second worst defense in the NFL. But they turned it around in the last 3 years. Going 11-5, 13-3, 13-3 with an aging quarterback largely on the backs of a vastly improved defense. A perennial all-pro in Cam Jordan, a lockdown number 1 corner in Marshawn Lattimore, a phenomenal pickup at linebacker in Demario Davis, and the Saints' the last 3 years defensive rank has been 8th, 11th, and 11th. And we've talked a good bit here in this offseason about why I'm so optimistic about these Saints. And a big part of it is because I think offensively they'll continue to be efficient, but defensively they are supplementing an already really solid defense, a bordering top 10 defense in the NFL. And when you supplement that and tweak the squeaky hinge, it's like you iron out that problem and you're golden. On the offensive side, here's the Saints' offensive ranks for the last decade. 11, 2, 9, 5, 7, 7, 6, 2, 4, 4. Needless to say, the Saints always have been an elite offense. In 2010, they were 11th. Aside from that, they were never lower than 9th. Top 10 the whole decade. It's always been about getting your defensive ducks in a row. They've done it the past 3 years. See if they can do it one more year. Maybe go win a Super Bowl. So just let this be perspective, okay? Let it be perspective for you. So this year when P.J. Williams gives up a quick slant for a first down, or the Saints allow a conversion on 3rd and 8, or they allow a 2-minute drive before the half, don't throw your arms up in the air and talk about how much they suck, because there was a time in the not-too-distant past when they really did suck, like historically sucked, like literally allowed more yards and more points than any defense in the history of the NFL sucked. Thankfully, those days are gone, and hopefully they will never, never, ever, ever be back. And it sucks to be the Raiders. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.